Hello travelers, Boardman21 here, and today's build, the fourth one of the patch, is going to be the melee minion Necromancer. A lot of people have been asking for minions to be updated. There was a lot of changes to the Acolyte and the Necromancer in particular. With it, the only thing that's really changed in this build from the previous version is the fact that we have a new Dreadshade skill tree, which still acts pretty much the same, but there's a couple of mechanics in there that change the way it works, and we haven't updated this build since 8.1, so we're going to go ahead and get it done. Now this one is going to have a revised Dreadshade tree, which is going to make it so that Dreadshade still benefits all of the minions that you have. However, it will not drain their life and it will not poison them, meaning that you will no longer be killing your own minions, making it much easier to keep them alive and never have to actually revive them. Even in the Orbis fights in Empowered content, I was not having them die. Now, it does take some gear to build into that. None exalted, there is no exalted gear, but it will take a little bit of time to farm the uniques if you don't have them. This is a low life build, so we will have 𝐒𝐻𝐦𝐦𝐻𝐸, Last Steps of the Living, and then of course we have the death rattle for the amulet, which is pretty common, and then the weapon is the Eulogy of Blood, which is a much rare but boss farmable unique that you can get. Now, when I say low life build and we're wearing 𝐒𝐻𝐦𝐦𝐻𝐸 and Last Steps of the Living, which are both uniques that convert a portion of your missing life into ward, so you have shield, it does increase your survivability, but you do not have to play it with those. You can play the full life version if you do not have those, and this will allow more powerful nodes on the chest that will make your minions even more powerful, and you can stack a lot more health. So I'd recommend playing it either way, although the ward generation way is the way that I like to play it. I like to be low life, but it doesn't make a difference in terms of damage one way or the other. Alright, let's go ahead and get into the skills, the interactions, and just how it works. For skills, I'm running Rip Blood, Dreadshade, Summon Skeleton Mage, Summon Skeleton, and Harvest. For Rip Blood, we're using this for ward gain and to buff our minions. We have 1 point in Necromancer, 4 points in Quenching, 1 point in Marrow Drinker, and 1 point in Hematology. And this is so that we get a bunch of health restored per point of intelligence, which we don't stack a whole lot of. We also get double the health, which will convert all of that to ward on the other side of the tree every time that we get a Rip Blood, and then we'll also target our minions instead of the enemy. That way we can buff them much easier. We have 2 points in Arcane Absorption, 1 point in Rip Spirit, and 1 point in Arcane Fortress, so that the health granted from getting the Rip Bloods, which will be hitting our minions, will instead grant us ward, and we'll get quite a few hundred ward every time that we do it, which we can proc every few seconds thanks to the Eulogy of Blood. Got 1 point in Eviscerate and 1 point in Splatter. 2 points in Crimson Flood, 1 point in Blood Infusion. So when the blood splatters hit your minions, it actually buffs them, giving them 30%. It says here increased damage for 4 seconds, but it's actually a more damage multiplier, so they actually do more damage. 3 points in Infused Frenzy gives them 30% increased attack and cast speed. They will attack 30% more faster. 1 point at the end gives Blood Infusion Physical Leech, so all your minions will gain plus 5% Physical Leech. For Dreadshade, we have this set up so that it will no longer poison your minions. It will no longer give them critical strike chance, which is fine because we get 100% critical strike chance for them elsewhere. And it will also not drain their health. So their health will be left untouched, allowing them to have infinite survivability. They will be permanent unless they take damage from mobs, but they have such good leech, they should easily be able to out-leech that. So we've got 2 points in Spectral Presence to increase the area, 1 point in Lone Watcher, and this is what changes it. It no longer drains the health. It increases the shade duration by 50%, so it will last for 30 seconds, but you can only have 1 shade active, so you want to keep all your melee minions kind of together in that area. The health drain increase will increase damage taken of the minion that it's applied on. Don't worry, they don't take too much more damage. We're not built into it too hard. I'll show you the percentages when we're done. 3 points in Dying Coven gives increased attack speed and cast speed. 2 points in Grim Fate gives increased area, damage, and increased health decay. Now this 50% increased health decay would mean that your minion takes 50% more damage. However, over here, we reduce the health decay by 32%, so there's only an 18% difference. So your minions actually only taking 18% more damage, which is nothing. It's why they're going to have not a hard time to survive. This also gives plus 12 necrotic damage to all the minions that are affected by the aura. A lot of more physical damage for them. 1 point in Symbiotic Apparition makes it to where yourself and the allies are all affected that are around the minion. that has the Dread Shade on them. Then we have 4 points in Duskheart, so that all of the minions inside that area of effect will have 100% chance to inflict damned on the enemies that they hit, which is cool because, like, against the training dummy, this actually stacks high enough to get between 7,000 and 10,000 damage ticks, which is actually quite a bit of damage for a dot that's only doing 1 stack for all of our minions. And then we have 3 points in Flesh Harvest, so that it increases the buff effects that we get out of the skill tree by 3% for every 3% missing health of the minion that it's on. Now, our minion's not going to be missing a lot of life. He's going to survive, obviously, and be at full life at almost all times. So this isn't a big thing, but if your minion does take a lot of damage or almost dies, all the way down to that 1% health, they're going to do up to 99% more of everything that you get in here. The attack speed, damage increase, so they can become really powerful as that happens. They can basically become a berserker as they go into low life. Summon Skeleton Mage, we have this set up to have as many mages as possible, for them to have 100% crit, and for them to leech a portion of their health back every time that they do a crit. On top of that, they'll have Hungering Souls and a lot of added damage. So we've got 2 points in Splintered Dominion, so they'll have extra melee area of effect. We got 2 points in Leech Life, so that they leech more of the damage that they do. They also have more maximum life. 1 point in Death Knights made it to where we're only going to be summoning Death Knights. 5 points in Flaming Attacks gives them 20 more melee added fire damage. 1 point in Death Blossom gives Death Knights cast Hungering Souls with 4 extra projectiles. This does not use your skill tree Hungering Souls. However, what's cool about this is because Dreadshade now adds necrotic damage, it does 10 by the base and 12 that we added, so it's 22 added necrotic damage. That is added to spells and attacks. So their attacks will do more, and now Hungering Souls will hit pretty decent for them as well. And you'll have 5 Death Knights that are all having Hungering Souls go off, which is pretty crazy to look at when they all go off at the same time, because there's about 50 Hungering Souls headed in all directions. It's more of a visual pleaser than anything else. You can switch that point out if you'd like. 5 points in Cellar Mortis gives them more base crit chance and move speed. 3 points in Grey Merchant gives them more critical strike multiplier, and now when they do a crit, which is 100% of the time, they leech 15% of their maximum health as life back. So this is why it's very important for you to give them a lot of maximum life, because the more maximum life you have, the more they're being killed every time they do a crit, and the much harder for them to be killed. And then 1 point in Order of Death for +1 number of skeleton mages. For Summon Skeleton, we're doing the Warriors. So we have 3 points in Necrotic Conviction, 1 point in Hollow Walkers for +1 maximum skeleton, and then 1 point in Shambling Steel to remove all the archers so that we will only have the Warriors. We got 1 point in Bone Armor, so the Warriors can cast Bone Armor. 2 points in Impatient, so that it increases the cooldown recovery of that Bone Armor and makes it last longer. This will make it to where they can all have 100% uptime of Bone Armor on themselves, and they'll become much more tanky. We got 3 points in Unholy Rage for more attack and cast speed and move speed for them. 1 point in Marrow Walkers to increase the number of skeletons by another 1. 2 points in Unbound Necromancy for mana efficiency and crit chance form. 1 point in Gravewalkers for another +1 skeleton, making +9 the limit that we have. And 5 points in Sweeping Strikes for 60% increased melee area of effect and 60% more damage for them. You can get rid of the Bone Armor if you're having absolutely no problem surviving, which I wasn't, and build into more damage or more life for them healer. They can get more health, they can get more attack speed, or you can give them more crit chance if for some reason you're struggling to get to 100% crit chance. For Harvest, we just have Harvest set up because the Eulogy of Blood is really good for melee attacks, because it will proc 3 Rip Bloods for you, so we don't have to manually cast the Rip Bloods. Plus, we can make minions target who we hit, and we can give them additional damage. So we've got 2 points in Finality for kill threshold, 5 points in Skull Shards, so that the next Harvest hit, after you've got 6 basically hits with it, or 6 stacks of skulls, you've hit 6 enemies, will have 300% more damage, and minions will gain 300% more damage. So you can do some big hits. 1 point in Undead Harvest means that minions will prioritize the target that you are hitting with Harvest and make them take 5% more damage. And 5 points in Legion of the Lich. As long as we have landed a critical strike with Harvest, your minions gain 250% increased critical strike chance, which is what's going to boost them all the way up there to 100% crit. 1 point in Harling Blade for the necrotic resistance shred chance, 3 points in Great Scythe for increased area, and 3 points in Spectral Weightstone to increase that base crit chance to make it more likely for you to get that crit chance with it to keep your minions buffed. For passives, we got 20 points in the Acolyte base class with 7 points in Blood Aura, 5 points in Dark Rituals, and 8 points in Forbidden Knowledge. We got 11 points in the Lich with 8 points in Apocrypha, 2 points in Survival of the Cruel, and 1 point in Hall the Lich. You do need this if you're doing the low life build. This will make it to where you don't leech any of the damage and allows you to just have as much ward as possible generated. And then for the Necromancer, we have 82 points in our Mastered class with 8 points in Risen Army, 3 points in Cursed Blood, 1 point in Blood Armor, 5 points in Mortal Tether, 4 points in Aegis Fall, 1 point in Unbound Necromancy, 8 points in Unearthed Arms, 8 points in Tyrant, 10 points in Moonlight Prior, 5 points in Tyrant's Legion, 5 points in Frantic Summons, 5 points in River of Bones, 3 points in 𝐒𝐻𝐤, 10 points in Rite of Undeath, 5 points in Blades of Forlorn, and 1 point in Disciples of Necromancy for that 5th mage. Alright, for idols, items, uniques, blessings, not completely min-maxed on the blessings, but I kind of moved some around. I won't have these in-game, but these are the ones that you more of want to go towards. For the idols, we have a bunch of 1x3s that give base critical strike chance to your skeletons and your skeleton mages. So it'll give both of them more base crit chance, which is big. It'll also give them minion physical damage as a suffix. You can run 4 of those. You can also get a suffix of less damage taken over time for your own survivability. And then for the 1x2s, you want as much health increase. You can get elemental resist on these with increased health, or increased health and flat health, which is going to give you the biggest boost. For uniques, yes, we're running a lot of uniques, but like I said, a lot of them you don't need. You don't have to run the Eulogy of Blood. However, if you don't run the Eulogy of Blood, you're going to have to manually cast the Rip Blood every now and then to give your minions the blood splatter and get all the boost from that. On top of this, the minions will lose some cold damage, so you will deal a little less damage, but you'll be okay. If you're not running low life, you will not need 𝐒𝐭𝐦𝐬𝐷 or Last Steps of the Living. However, in this case, as a low life build, we are running that. You can run this as a full life build. That's perfectly fine, and you can get more critical strike chance and more skeleton mage damage or whatever you would like to put on the chest, plus levels, any of that you can do. The Death Rattle, again, not needed, but this does give a lot of minion critical strike multiplier, and as a 100% crit build, this is going to be best in slot there. And then we have the Ribbons of Blood, again, not mandatory, but is nice that because it gives you increased health, but this allows the minions to leech a lot more damage, leech's life on hit, it gives them faster leech rate, and it gives them flat added physical damage, and the most important one, it makes it to where they cannot be crit, so they take way less damage. For the rest of these, I'm just going to hover over them. The build planner, again, as always, will be in the description below and in the written guide. For blessings, nothing important. I do not have critical strike chance or avoidance on my character, so we take a little bit more damage in the gameplay. I recommend that you get the critical strike avoidance as a blessing, and I recommend you put it on at least 1 or 2 pieces to get to 100% if you struggle with dying. We have a lot of health, so we're not dying too often, and power content's pretty easy, but if you're stacking corruption or trying in the arena, definitely get that 100% critical strike avoidance. For the character sheet, we have just over 2300 health. We're capped on resistances, we have a little bit of armor, and then for defense, like I said, no critical strike avoidance on this character, no endurance. Both of those will make us much more tanky, but we're doing corruption, we're doing high empowered, just no problem. We were able to do 200 corruption, no problem. So no problem there. Of course, if we go much higher, probably gonna have to start building into that. At this point, you know, we just kite around and let our minions do all the work. And of course, every time we hit with harvest just one time and we get those 3 Rip Bloods, it generates a bunch of ward for us. For damage, for the minions, we have 500% health for them, and then they have some minion health regen, but you don't really have to build too much in that. Early game, yes, but late game, once they're leech, once you hit the 100% crit, they're leeching most of their life back, so you don't have to build into like tier 4, tier 5, or have 3 different pieces of gear with that minion health regen on it. You actually just want to build more minion health or minion dodge for them, as that'll be more effective, because they can leech a lot. For damages, they have about 500% damage. For necrotic damage, they have just over 600%. A lot of that comes from the passives. Alright, and then for how to play the build, so once you summon them, you don't really have to summon them again. They don't die for me. If you haven't really built into 100% crit for them yet, or you don't have some minion health regen, they might die like as you level through the campaign or in the early monos. But once you get to endgame and get good gear, they just stop dying. I mean, obviously they'll eventually die if you go high arena or high corruption, but echo running, pretty smooth. So you can have them attack, they'll auto attack. Obviously you see they have the hungering souls, they're doing really good. You just hit him with a Dread Shade once every 20 to 30 seconds just to make sure one's active. Mana is not going to be a problem at all in this build. And then to really boost their damage, what you really want to do is get in there and do some harvests on the enemy, and that's where you're going to really boost their damage. You get the blood splatters on the ground, and you can see that they get that real nice boost of attack speed and damage, and they're critting from 10 to 30k crits. There's 14 of them, and they're attacking really, really fast. You can see the training dummy's life is actually starting to move. So it's quite a high DPS build, and it's consistent. There's no cooldown, there's nothing. The only cooldown is running from mob to mob. Since these are melee minions, it's a little bit of a slower pace than the ranged ones just because they do have to run to each minion and do it, but you're tankable enough that you can easily just run through an echo and bring them to the end with you. And at that point, you can just kill off the boss or whatever you need to do. Alright, that's going to be it for this build guide. I hope you guys enjoyed it. As always, stay safe and enjoy some gameplay.